everybody, welcome to InPsight Radio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. How are you guys? We are rolling straight into part 2 from the 2023 year of rooting, and we're going to be talking about politics, sociology, and climate. Because, you can't get it all into 1 hour, you guys. It just doesn't work. So here we go. So I'm actually really excited about this because I think there's going to be a lot of you that really relate with a lot of this podcast, quite honestly. And of course, we're just going to get right in here. We're going to dive right in. And I love these predictive particular sweeps for the year to come. They're so much fun. So we're going to start with politics. And I know, that's on a lot of people's minds because we've got a lot going on in our political sphere. And we've got, of course, former President Trump has declared for the presidency, and we've got Ron DeSantis declaring for the presidency. It is assumed that Joe Biden will nod towards the Democratic ticket, but I got to tell you, future says, bing! We're not so sure about that one. Joe Biden would be quite old if he ran for another 4 terms. And what I was always seeing with Joe Biden was that he was really, really willing to go ahead and kind of stop the bleeding and bring back some old school chill to the political aspect. And, he's like the great moderate, Joe Biden. Love him or hate him. He's the guy that works with everybody on both sides of the aisle. And he came from the same school as John McCain, the former Republican senator who was renowned for his ability to just get along with everybody. And in fact, I really miss John McCain. I miss Senator McCain. I remember when he was running against Barack Obama in 2008. And Obama had won the Democratic nomination away from Hillary Clinton. And Obama was just a force of nature. And he was the first Black candidate for president that really ever had a shot. And so, it was really amazing what he was able to accomplish. He related with everybody. And there was John McCain. And I remember they had a debate. And it was hysterical. They were doing a town hall, actually. It wasn't a debate. And John McCain says, they throw the question to him, they threw it to Obama, and Obama has this insanely eloquent answer about all the things. Then they threw it back to John McCain, and Senator McCain was like, he says, I'm going to pretend like I have an iceberg's shot in hell of winning this election and actually answer your question. And everybody kind of chuckled because, it was such a mandate from the country at that point when Obama won. So, of course, Obama's vice president, was Joe Biden. So Joe Biden came into this whole entire election cycle really just to stop the bleeding out of the country because we had a lot going on that was not so hot with the Trump years. It was just not good. So Biden came in, he got elected overwhelmingly. Then, of course, poor old Trump had to start they cheated, because that's what his campaign had done during the Hillary Clinton 2016 election. So pretty much everything Trump ever has done to someone else, he claims is being done to him. And I'm not sure if that's part of the narcissistic personality disorder where they take some of their guilt and just play the victim and take the things they've done to others and paste them on themselves, or if he just spins it that way because I don't know why, because he's good at spinning things. It's actually a great gift he has. So Joe Biden, though, in our current presidency with him, it doesn't necessarily look like he's going to be gunning to do a second presidency. And that would, of course, the nod would go to Kamala Harris, all these other things. But we'll see, because his jury is out on that one. He doesn't want to throw the country into another tailspin. Yet he is older. He's an older person. So I just always saw him as a one-term president, not because he got termed or voted out, but because he chose not to run. So I'm just seeing that he's probably going to be like, yeah, I think we're good. We're going to turn this one over to an open field, and here we go. So the other portion of this, of course, that is intriguing is we've got former President Trump, who is belly aching that he's going to run in 2024. And excuse me, as I said in the last podcast, he has a great deal of just illness that has caught up to him. And that illness, he's got a lot of physical issues. He's got internal organ issues. That, again, I'm kind of recapping from last podcast. However, he talked about the fact that he was very adamant about getting his spray tans and all that. Well, he's got just this gray complexion. I mean, he's pale, big deal. He's obviously he's got Scottish background. But there is a pastiness, a grayness to his complexion that he covers up with the spray tan. So since he's been president, I mean, honestly, I do tremendously feel bad for this guy. I do, truthfully. He's probably put on 150 pounds. Not going to lie. The man is tall. Donald Trump is like 6'3". He's this really tall guy. And he has put on all this weight, which is a lot for him. So he wasn't healthy anyway. He doesn't eat healthy. He's chowing down those Big Macs. He's just not well. So on top of that, he's got all kinds of issues with, I see different bouts of different drug use. And again, this is all psychic. But a lot of the drugs are to keep him going. Uppers, whether it's Adderall or whatever. The guy is 75 or something, and he's just trying to keep going. And so there's a big deficit in his energy. And so his brain is also getting really fuzzy. And I was saying in the last podcast, he put out this statement on Truth Social, which is his own version of Twitter. And in that statement, he basically called for the Constitution to be dissolved. And so this is going to get really interesting because you're going to have the really, 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 really fringy people who are like, yeah, burn it down. All the severe folks who really took place in the Capitol insurrection of January 6th. They're all going to be like, yeah, burn it down. It sucks. Blah. And he's getting himself in a position where he just sounds extremely crazy. So in 2024, Trump really does not get the backing of the GOP. As a matter of fact, going into 2024, he's not going to have the backing of the GOP. He's just not. And that's going to get difficult for him because he's going to want all the support and all the kudos and whatever. And he thinks he's going to take all the people with him. Well, because of the black and white nature of 2023's year of rooting, okay? And again, in part one, we talked all about the spiritual and ergo physical applications of the year of rooting. Because of the black and white applications, Trump's rhetoric that got gray areaed before, because everybody's like, oh, he can't mean that. He's just somebody's crazy old drunk uncle. He doesn't mean that. That energy is gone. So now it's very black and white. So in 2023, he sounds like a certified crazy person. He sounds delusional. He sounds just way out there, even to his own following. People get concerned when he starts talking about dissolving the Constitution because this isn't what our founders wanted. And we need to do away with that document. I mean, he's just really way out there. 2023 also may show a great flight risk, and I've been talking about this for a while for former President Trump. I've got the angel who walks with the world here. I've got his angels who walk with his life path and who also walk with his heart. And the sad part is that love or hate Trump. The guy does have a set of feelings, and mostly his feelings are about himself. Yet in his feelings, he's had them very hurt by the fact that people just don't think he's God anymore. And he has been throwing his rallies, and he's noticing the occupation at his rallies are smaller and smaller. And there's still a ton of supporters he has, gang. Okay, don't think that's not true. He has a ton of supporters. The issue is the GOP is going to want to throw initially, this is going to get crazy. You got to pop some popcorn and watch the GOP go in the next 2 years because they're initially going to throw their support behind Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. And DeSantis also has a slew of legal troubles. I mean, he's got a ton going on. I swear to God, man, can a Republican find somebody who's just like a normal conservative? You know what I mean? Just like we have a ton of them out here in Montana, just the best people you've ever met in your life that are just like, look, I don't care who you marry. I don't care what you smoke. I don't care what you do in your bedroom. Just don't do it to a minor, and make sure everybody's saying yes and agreeing that they want to do it with you. Don't victimize people. Don't take my land or my cattle. Do not overtax me, because it just goes to pork fat spending, and I don't want to pay for somebody's Tesla. And I'd really rather this just be smartly used. Let's use it for the community. Let's budget well. Let's not get rich off of other people's tax dollars, but I do encourage you to go get rich off of the oil industry. I mean, that's a standard conservative up here in Montana, okay? I don't know where the GOP is finding these folks to back. And so Ron DeSantis is going to be the big hot pick initially. It's going to turn out that he's going to open his mouth and say some crazy, crazy stuff, trying to attract the Trump people. Problem is, the Trump people already have their very out there guy who's saying crazy things like dissolve the Constitution, okay? And he's going to say more crazy things. He's going to talk about people coming together to make his own army. I mean, you guys, all the authoritarians in the whole wide world are having a colossal emotional and spiritual meltdown. They are all melting down, from Putin down to Kim Jong-un, over there to Donald Trump. Even the lady, watch the crazy lady over in Italy. She's not actually that crazy, but she's a big supporter of the Mussolini movement, a very conservative Italian lady. And this authoritarian movement is not just in the United States, it's all over the globe. It's a big movement for authoritarianism, religious doctrinism to take over the globe so that there can just be only one, like the frickin' Highlander, okay? Well, it's not successful. None of that happens. But in the meantime, pop your popcorn, because the American GOP is over here going to back DeSantis first. DeSantis is going to say a bunch of crazy stuff. Plus, he has some legal troubles that are going to uncover some unsavories. The GOP is finally going to get a hint that their voter base is tired of people who are major white-collar criminals. And their voter base is going to want a more normal person. So that's when you're going to see the Susan Collins being approached. That's when you're going to see the Liz Cheney's being approached. I kid you not. Now, whether Liz will do it, I don't know. She's pretty hacked off at the Republicans right now, and I can't say I blame her. But when I look into the future, the Republicans are going to be juggling candidates like you wouldn't believe. However, Trump is not going to be one of them. So everybody out there, and I mean, it would take a colossal rigging, to use his words, of not only this election, but the GOP primary system to get him in there again. They don't want him around. They're considering him toxic. They're considering him too crazy. And now he's just talking about dissolving the Constitution. So, and he's going to be talking about rallying an army for himself. I don't think that's happened yet, but that's another one. He's going to put together an army of truth and he's gone a little cray. So Trump's family really needs to take the internet away from him, because this man is not well. He's not well in the head. He's not physically well. And there's what I am seeing is dementia issues starting to rear their head. They were starting to come in when he was president, but we're like 5 years down the road now by the time this is all going to come swinging around. So it's just going to get progressively worse. And in the meantime, the Democratic candidates are going to be leaning, when Joe Biden doesn't appear he's going to want to seek re-election, they are going to be leaning towards, as are the Republicans, moderate candidates, gang. Because as we talked about in the first podcast, extremism is on its way out. And energetically, extremism just cannot be supported in this world. It can't be supported. So we've got these big extremists. We've got Putin. We've got Trump. We've got the gal over in Italy. We've got Kim Jong-un. We've got a few folks in China who they kind of govern as a collective over there. And that whole modality, China's not so much this way, but the individual, especially the male leaders, are all melting down. And we're looking at the and I talked about this at the top of 2022 with Ukraine war and whatnot over in Russia. We are looking at the Soviet Union, the which is what they wanted to be, the Soviet Union. We're looking at the Russian Republic. We're looking at Russia be so financially destabilized through this war that Russia themselves get rid of Putin. And you gotta love the Russians. They're always so dramatic and they're always so subtle. And they never say, oh, by the way, this is my fault. I did this. Their leaders just suddenly die of a heart attack, or they disappear, or they slip off a horse, or, the KGB just handles it. And then there's somebody new. So Putin, after bankrupting his country, when they're nearly bankrupt. And again, he himself as an oligarch has a bunch of money in crypto, but the crypto market tanked, as we talked about the last podcast. So he's having a hard time getting together the money he needs. And Trump doesn't have the money he needs, because also Trump's he's going to get hit with indictments. And I know this is kind of old news, because in 2017, I looked ahead and was doing some predictions then and saw that what would bring Donald Trump, his political career, to a halt, and his business career, is he would get popped on tax fraud. And that's exactly what's going on. He's also going to get nailed with his handling of classified documents, okay? And it's really honestly because the Justice Department and our political systems have figured out that Donald Trump has turned more into a fringy figure. He does have a significantly huge amount of followers still, but those followers are getting a little turned off by his rhetoric. So at some point in the United States, I look into our government and I see the powers that be and all these folks that kind of get together and talk about how they're going to form the narrative, which is a giant thing in our country, and saying, I think we just need to let this guy kind of fall to the wayside, and we need to show that the rule of law still works in this country. Because if this guy's allowed to get away with all of this stuff in plain sight just because he's president, then there will be no structure to the rule of law in any way, shape, or form. And we're going to have problems, the whole time with all of this. So just watch for that upcoming. They're really pushing quickly for the indictments. As far as all of those who've been writing to me asking if Trump's going to go to jail, is he going to go to prison? I want to see him in prison. Gang, he is a former president of the United States. They're not just going to slap him on in a orange jumpsuit and throw him in county and then move him over to the general population while he shuffles around in his slippers and gets his slop on the chow line, okay, in the cafeteria. This is a human being that has national secrets in his brain. So they would never incarcerate Trump in the same place they would incarcerate anybody else. What they would do is indict him, they would find him guilty, and then they would impose like massive home arrests, or they would impose his businesses being taken away from him. I mean, you got to remember, Al Capone, when he got popped for his misdeeds, he never got convicted on murder or rape or anything else that he did. He got convicted on tax fraud. And they did stick him in the general population in prison in Alcatraz, actually. I think he had his own private room, but even then, he had this desk and he had a bunch of stuff he negotiated in there. So yeah, and Capone was kind of running his business from the jail, from the prison. However, the situation with Donald Trump is going to be different. And so politically, what we're looking at is a move towards a real movement towards the middle. Our country has gone through a grand experiment of polarization. And that polarization has been really, really difficult. And we've been close to blowouts. And as I've spoken many times on this podcast, there are powers that be in this nation that do want us to fight with one another. That's the only way that if the anarchy hits and the country collapses, then the crazies with all the money swoop in and create this dystopian, creepy, Blade Runner type show that doesn't have the cool effects, nor does it have Harrison Ford. So, you end up with this just really awful thing, which is why we have to fight for the democracy that we do have. And no, it's not perfect. And obviously, we've got a lot more work to do. But we do have the bare bones of creating whatever we want on top of it, which is why people who have had more money, more avarice, more insanity, more holy war aspecting, a lot of more mental illness, have looked at the bare bones of what can be created and created a lot of crazy right over the top of it. And that's not a failure in our Constitution. That's a failure in the part of great people trying to stay involved and keeping things going. And I don't even want to say failure, but you got to admit, gang, sometimes you just got to own it. We have more moderates in this country that are both, what if you want to call them Republicans or Democrats, more moderates in this country than anything else. And we have more young people who are just not voting because they can't relate with this ridiculous system. So a majority of the American population who believes in peace, love, harmony, and moderation is not voting, okay? Because of this disinformation campaign that was started in the 80s by Russia, thank you, back then about, oh, your vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter. You're just a little guy. Who cares? Russia has been gunning after America for a long time. Because I don't know why we're not friends. We should be. We really should be. We should go back to World War II when we were on the same side and we got great things done, honestly. Because this is just ridiculous. But anyway, poor Putin, he's going downhill with his health. He's going to bankrupt Russia. He already has. People are fleeing his army. Poor Trump is not going to be able to get he can't follow in the same footsteps because we are not in the same place spiritually. And we are in a very polarized black and white time frame. So you'd think that a polarizing candidate would do great in that time frame. The problem is they don't, because we have no gray to float their crazy. They come right out with a crazy statement and everybody's like, oh my God, that's crazy. Black and white, it's this or it's that. So what I've got to tell you is that our politics, because of the evolution, because of the year of rooting, the United States is going to choose to root in the middle. They are not going to choose to root on either side very far because we are a country that really is divided down the middle. We really are. And our voter base that would like a more liberal country just doesn't vote. So that's the reality of it. And until they decide to vote, we're going to keep getting more of the same. So I don't see that anybody's necessarily going to come out to vote in droves unless Trump really, makes it through the primary, which I don't see. The Republicans wouldn't let him at this point. So we've got a moderate political climate coming up. So the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, are all the real hardcore folks out there are really going to have a hard time. They're going to lose allies. Madison Cawthorn didn't make it through again. That poor young man just went way off the rails and got super crazy. We had Dems that were not making it in their elections because they got too polarized with the way that they demonstrated their ideology. But the hardcore crazy that was getting elected a few years ago isn't going to make it in 2024. So now, granted, 2024, we're not there yet. But this whole time frame, we're going to watch the crazy be really, really stepped away from, which affects 2024 in our political system. And that affects the sociology because, I've got a lot of people who are concerned that we were going to have a civil war. And we got really, 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 really close a couple of times. And I was just sitting there looking at this going, oh, come on, man. Let's not do this. Let's not do the big civil war again. We do have a big civil culture war. And when the GOP stops backing the super cray people, we're going to start to see things start to mellow out. Something else sociologically you're going to notice as I look into 2023 is the media is going to stop obsessively covering super crazy people. It might get a mention somewhere. If they do something really major, like strap a bomb to their body and walk in somewhere, they'll probably get coverage. I don't see that going on because most of these people are deeply afraid. So the media, sociologically, is not necessarily going to be covering the freak show aspect of politics or our sociology as much as we've been seeing it in, other years, which I think is excellent because I was getting pretty sick of, as we all were, breaking news. Pretty soon it was just like everything's breaking news. It's an absolute shit show. Everything. Wow. So this is something that we're looking at sociologically. Sociologically, too, we're going to see, again, across the country as a whole. Now, gang, we're always going to have our fringy folk. We're the United States. We're a big melting pot. We're not supposed to be all one flavor and all one belief and all one political party. That's just weird That's weird. So we're not supposed to be that over here. But we are going to move away from the really crazy stuff that is pretty dangerous for people to get involved with. And, the really, really, really insane, crazy stuff is going to go by the wayside, even in our messaging. We're going to see a lot of positive messages come out in 2023. A lot of people returning to kindness, because in the year of rooting, we've had to decide who the heck are we, and we need to root in one area or the other. So in the year of rooting, we're going to be rooting in the area of peace, of unity, of harmony, even if we're not the same political party, even if we don't believe the same thing. The whole racist, crazy, white supremacist thing that we've been seeing building the last couple of years. There's always going to be people with that illness as long as it's entertained, as long as people give it a space. Yet it's going to lose its momentum. So this is literally a time frame for all of the work that we've done sociologically to make the world a better place, to have a more temperate set of ears. The Gene Roddenberry future where everybody's kind of working together and, there's a little politics, but really our biggest issues are our off-worlders and what are the Klingons going to do? Really as a planet, we've kind of pulled it together. So 2023, as I was saying in the last podcast in part 1, is the culmination of all of these different avenues, that we've gone on to get to where we needed to go. Everything has led up to this point. And with that lead up, this is where we start building the world that we want to see. And it does involve making choices. It does involve just going for it. It doesn't involve just sitting there not being able to make a decision or just waiting for more of the universe to tell you another thing. You can do that, but the universe is going to be like, look, man, hustle, get up off your blocks. We got to move. Because sociologically, we've got to rebuild. And the only way to rebuild is to have projects to rebuild around. So whether that's you getting out in your community and starting one of those little, have you ever seen those little lending libraries? Do you know what I'm talking about? Have part of your yard, just stick a pole down in there and put a lending library on it where people can put, household items like books and a spare strainer and maybe a extension cord if they have an extra one or something, and people can kind of just trade out items in the neighborhood. This is coming into a time frame in the year of rooting to really focus on how we are going to build our communities. So becoming part of your community again, especially post-COVID, is going to be huge sociologically. And we're going to have a lot of young people, as I'm looking ahead, who are really, really going to struggle with that. They're going to struggle because their ideology of the world really got skewed sideways when a lot of them stayed home for a year through COVID. And we've got a lot of young people, Gen Z especially, that have a lot of anxiety issues. And our schools, there's so many kids that have test anxiety right now, even in Montana, in our little state, which if you're to listen to the news, which I really wouldn't, I would tell you, do not look at the news to determine Montana's character. Montana is a very purple state. We have a very traditional, conservative, kind of the John Duttons of the world, the conservative old rancher guys. And then we've got a lot of liberal people. We've got a lot of the mountain ski liberals and the save the trees liberals. And so we've got a really wide smattering of folks out here. And again, with a pretty heavy leaning towards more traditional fiscal conservatives. And even our high schools in Montana at this point, there is something you can get if you're taking a test. And I know this because our daughter is, she's a senior. This year, I can't believe it. Jeez Louise, she graduates this year, you guys. How old am I? Anyway, she's bright and amazing and I love her. And so Nora was telling me that there are kids in her school that have something called a 504. They can get a 504. I said, honey, what's a 504? And she told me that the 504 was a test exemption. So really, it was if you had test anxiety, basically. So if you're a kid and you have a half an hour to take a test and you have test anxiety, you get a 504 and it gives you a whole full hour to take the test. So you can kind of relax and take your test. And apparently it's because they have so many kids who have test anxiety that the kids just won't take the test. They'll just flunk out of the class. They freak out over the test. But I mean, this is the world we're raising our kids in, that a freaking test in high school is that big of a deal? Because it's predicated, I mean, it's like leaning on all of this college application stuff. And college now costs $50 trillion to go to school. By the way, parents, just FYI, if you don't know that, it's true. And, you know, our kid who even got huge scholarships for the, you know, program that she's going to go to, even then, school is still really, really expensive. So we can contribute a little, but she's getting loans and grants and all the other things. And these kids are so nervous in high school, gang, that they have to get a 504 exemption so they can take a test. So what we're talking about is, you know, when we're looking sociologically at the world, we've got a lot that we've got to do to make this world a place where our young people are not shutting down. And I have a tremendous amount of clients that I have a lot of empathy for. They have younger kids. And they talk about how these kids really do have a big failure to launch. You know, they go to college and they may end up back in a couple of years or a year or a semester. Or a lot of how these kids can't handle having other roommates. It freaks them out too much. They don't know who this person is. What if this person's a crazy person? What if they're a stalker? What if they're a rapist? What if they're a racist? These kids have so much fear going out into the world. And so sociologically, non-Gen Zs, hey, my fellow Gen Xers, I know we're in our middle age, but let's pull our crap together and get out there and show these kids that we've got it handled. That the world is not something to be feared, that the power that they have is unique and incredible, that everything they are is here for a reason, and yes, a certain amount of anxiety is way normal, and I am really glad that our young people can actually discuss their mental health issues and get some help for it, and not just get bullied indefinitely or have huge problems that resort to drug abuse later. I'm really glad our kids can talk about what's got them down. Yet at the same time, I feel like we need to show them a world that is empowered with possibilities. Not an iPhone that's exploding with crap and drama every 5 seconds. And so sociologically, in the year of rooting, these kids are going to either be really having a hard time launching into the world, or they're going to be flying into the world and rooting themselves in their purpose. So if you have a little one at home who is just so freaked out about the world, and again, and I say this with delicacy because we do need to pay attention to the mental health issues that our children are struggling with. That being said, we also need to pay attention to the natural propensity of the collective groupthink that is part of being a teenager. And so, you know, helping our kids understand that just because they have 5 friends that are experiencing crippling anxiety, that their anxiety level doesn't necessarily necessitate the same treatment as their friends, and really getting them in their own body to help them understand that, yes, this is a scary time. Things are weird. There is uncertainty, but there was uncertainty before, and we got through it. It's not making light of their struggle. It's showing them that perseverance is a practice. It's a practice. And again, I can feel a few of you out there getting upset going, my child is doing the best they can and they struggle with anxiety and it sounds like you're marginalizing this and downplaying it and erasing it. I am not. I am saying that for those kids who deeply struggle that way, this 504 test exemption is amazing. I'm simply saying that teenagers are naturally anxious. And what I'm looking at in 2023 are a lot of kids that want to shut down. And what saves them from shutting down as going into the world is seeing older people not act like jerks, not scream and yell, not pretend climate change is not happening, not constantly just talk about their 401k and their cars and their houses, but actually contributing with the world, giving, not worrying about looking out for number one, which was the mantra of the boomers. Because the boomers came out of the collective, the greatest generation, the collective. I don't matter. The war effort matters. I don't matter. The collective effort matters. And then the boomers came along and were like, well, I think we need to bring in some individualism. And then that got out of balance. And it's actually going to be the boomers. I mean, look at Joe Biden and the other folks who are coming back to the middle and saying, you know, I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to buy the world a Coke. You know, I mean, literally, that's what we've got. We're going to have a lot of peace, love, and harmony. And for as much as some of the more violent political figures, and I will say violent because they've been verbally violent or physically violent, those folks are really going to have to backpedal. I know this isn't the politics section anymore, but sociologically speaking, they will not be supported. One of my favorite future stories, it's not here yet, obviously, but in 2023 is Lindsey Graham. We all know Lindsey Graham. You know, he's an extremely talented trial attorney. The guy is just brilliant. He's smart as a whip. And if you're on the other end of the whip, that kind of sucks. But Lindsey Graham has a brain that won't stop. And of course, he's got some beliefs that I think are a bit extreme. However, he's got the brain of a trial attorney. And he's getting called in to testify, to talk about what he knew about what Trump said to him about finding votes in Georgia and the Georgia vote tampering attempt. And so Lindsey Graham is going to be a fascinating one to watch also, because this is not a stupid man. He's an attorney. He'll bluff, he'll hedge his bets, he'll give his best speech, but he knows what the law is. And he would be the one to negotiate some kind of immunity if he completely rolled on Trump and squeaked like a piggy. So watch Lindsey Graham and his knowledge of the law and what that's going to bring out for him, because this is going to be fascinating. Because sociologically, we just aren't going to want to support extremists or others who support extremists. That's where we're going. We're going right towards the middle. We're rooting down like a tree. And we've got that one solid trunk that we're working on. And obviously the trunk has lots of rings. It's got all kinds of textures of bark. It's got little bugs living in it. I mean, the tree's made up of many things. But that main stalk, we're going back to that. And one of the things that I see sociologically also is making more room. Our younger people are going to, and I was saying earlier that from the Democratic or liberal perspective, there's a lot fewer of those voters who vote because they don't feel like they have a place or a voice. A lot of our younger folks are going to step up and they will vote. And they are gentle and they will bring a gentle energy into the workforce. So sociologically, we're going to see a whole restructuring with old corporate America. You know, I think about the movie 9 to 5. God, remember that movie? Dun 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 chicka dun chicka dun chicka dun chicka dun chung dun 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 chicka 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 dun. I love that song. And you had Lily Tomlin, the golden triangle of amazing actresses. Dolly Parton, Lily Tomlin, and the great Jane Fonda. All being office workers under the heel of evil boss Dabney Coleman. And if you want to see how much the world has changed, because let's see, how far are we? 1980 something, early 80s, that show came on. So 80, 90, 2000, 2010, 2020, that's like 40 years ago, give or take some change, that 9 to 5 came out. So if you really want to see how the world has changed, go rent 9 to 5 and watch it. And, you know, we watched it and we laughed at Jane Fonda getting bullied, and we laughed at Lily Tomlin being sexualized, and we laughed at, it was Dolly Parton who was sexualized, and we laughed at Lily Tomlin being treated badly because she was the, quote, ugly one. And we laughed, and you know why we laughed? Because it was true. It was true. That was the world back then. And of course, you know, every secretary's dream is to take off and go after their boss and do the crazy things they did to him. And Dabney Coleman really, really, really earned it in that particular movie. However, our young people, I don't even think would be able to relate with the movie 9 to 5. And sociologically, the world they're bringing in is conscientious. It's kind. They're not looking out for number one. They're looking out for you. They're putting the planet first, not themselves first. This generation doesn't want, and especially in 2023, we're going to see this, and we're going to see it inform our society. We're going to see it inform our politics. We're going to see it inform our social media. And the big loudmouth extremists, they are going to have places that they gravitate to. They will have places they go on social media. Yet what we're going to see overall, and this is what I think is so fascinating, is a return to civility. And I was calling this at the end of 2022. I'm like, look, we're heading towards civility. 2023, the year of rooting, is where we really see people just being civil again. And that even comes up around the political arena. Now, of course, we still have some very violent, angry people who are going to be violent and angry because that's just people. However, they're going to be a great minority, and the media is going to stop covering them as if they were a majority. We're going to see a turn in media towards more sociologically temperate stuff, and that's going to be huge. So all of this that we're looking at, it's all about the medium. It's about being in the medium position with all of it and not being stuck on the fringe or on the edges. So this is going to make a big deal in our social structure, especially when these young kids are getting out there. If they are afraid to launch, show them, folks who are older than Gen Z, that we got it handled, that we are kind. Show them through kindness, show them through helping people who are home deprived, show them through helping people who don't have warm coats in the winter, show them that the world is a place that can be sculpted into everything that is beautiful. And so that's, that kind of leads us at that point into our climate, because our climate not only is obviously we've scooted along climate change with our emissions and all that. And thankfully, the United States is back in the Paris Accord, the Paris Agreement. We're back in line to try to reduce our carbon emissions. One of the things we're going to see, folks, is we're not going to be able to just throw a switch and make everything electric, okay? So try to have some patience as we begin to integrate differing types of, quite frankly, just power. It takes a lot of, I always say this, it takes a lot of copper to make a battery. It takes a lot of copper wire to run electrical systems. And one wind turbine, those big ass old wind turbines, you're driving through the Dakotas or you're driving through eastern Montana and you look at there and there's these massive, it just kind of looks like a wind sculpture, these huge epic wind turbines. On average, there's about 4 tons of copper in every single one of those things. And we're not even talking about the casings, the steel, that makes the wind, or the aluminum that makes the turbines. There's a lot of heavy metals in that alternative energy, which means you got to mine it. Because how are you going to get the metal out of the rock? Actually, if we would make really good friends with our ETs again, there are a lot, especially our folks from Sirius AB, a lot of our off-world cousins have all kinds of technology to liquefy metal and draw it up through the rocks and just suck it right up and beam it right up, just exactly like a science fiction movie. Just sucking gold out of the ground. They used to come and take gold out of the ground, but it wasn't for wealth. It was to break it down to use the components as fuel because of the conductive components of gold. But they didn't necessarily have people mining it for them. They had this particular technology that was vibrational, that would vibrate the gold into this kind of fluid liquid format. And then they would suck it through the rocks and suck it through the dirt and just suck it up in big vats, and off they went. So if we could talk to our friends at Sirius AB and try to get this going, but I doubt that. Well, when I look at that, we have so many world governments that just do not want to let go of the patents that have come forward to make the world a greener place. And I say governments because technically that's supposed to be a free enterprise thing. But did you know that you cannot patent or copyright the idea on a perpetual motion device? Isn't that interesting? You just can't. You cannot be issued a patent or a copyright on a perpetual motion device. And a perpetual motion device is something that could, in theory, create endless amounts of electricity or momentum. So there's a lot of reasons for that, but you're not allowed to patent that in America. So like I said, we could tap our off-world cousins and really get some incredible heads up with what we're doing with our oil and gas industry. But when we go into 2023, we are going to see a huge move towards electric, which is tremendous. Yet I would really ask all of our innovators out there to begin to think about ways that we can generate electricity or just pull it out of the ethers. It's in the air, actually. Like Tesla. Tesla just pulled all that electromagnetic energy right out of the air and fed it to a device. And when you turn the device on, it sucked stuff out of the air. And pretty much as much amperage as the thing needed, that's how much it sucked out of the air. That is off-world technology. Our off-world friends have all kinds of technology that works like that. And I'm pretty sure Tesla either was a big psychic or an off-worlder or super smart or just met with these guys or just knew stuff. Because a lot of the stuff he invented was way out there, and the technology for it was and is currently being utilized by our off-world community. So in terms of our green energy and what we can look forward to, there are going to be some incredible opportunities, but oil and gas are not going to go away right away, just because we don't actually have the electrical infrastructure to send all of the electricity out to all the places. If we start all driving electric cars, and don't get me wrong, I love electric cars. I think electric cars are cool. I wish I had 6 of them in different colors, yellow, all different shades of yellow. But all I'm saying is, don't get frustrated if in 2023 everything just doesn't go electric. We are moving that way, but our infrastructure can't support it yet. We've got infrastructure that's 100 years old, and we still are working on ways to get energy out to outlying areas. I mean, my God, look what happened in poor Texas. The infrastructure took a poop the minute we had too much heat or too much cold. So we're still working on areas of how to translate the electricity to where it needs to go without overloading everything and blowing all the circuits out. So if you are an inventor and you think you have a way to create electricity without using 4 tons of copper, then I really encourage you to get going, because we're going to need some help in the areas of, we're really going to need some help in some areas of how we're going to institute our green energy and not shut our grids down. That's going to be a biggie. And of course, there's wind. Of course, there's solar. Solar is huge. Solar is going to continue to get huge. We're going to see in 2023 is going to be the start of solar cells in window coatings. How cool is that? In windows that can help run, charge the car batteries and can help run electric cars. So we're also going to see technologies, and this is really in the next 5 years, but we're going to see technologies start to poke their head up in our green energy quest that are going to be using the ocean more often, tidal turbines. And as we desalinate water and we try to figure out a way to do that where it's not $1 million, what do we do with all the salt? And salt actually can conduct electricity. You've got lithium salt batteries. So there's all kinds of things that are all going to go hand in hand as we step up in our green energy quest. And we really need to, because what we have now is not sustainable. And then we've got these plastic particles, the nanoparticles. When you hear about the plastic in the oceans, I mean, yeah, there's bags and bottles and those plastic things that you put around the cans that get stuck. The little turtle babies get their little paddles, their paddly fins and their faces stuck in those things and can't swim. So yeah, that's a thing. However, microplastics are teeny, weeny little bits of plastic that plastics don't just dissolve. They just keep breaking down and breaking down until they're these microscopic, teensy-weensy little things getting absorbed by like krill. And then larger animals are eating those beings and the toxins are building up in their body. I mean, it's just insipid what's going on with the plastics. So we're going to see a big movement towards creating something that can suck the plastics out of the water supply, because we have them in the air too. We've got them in the water, sucking the plastics out of the air and the water supply so that we can focus at that point on really just being healthy and not getting the reciprocal diseases. There are going to be, starting in 2023, we're going to start to see some really incredible opportunities being brought forward with microorganisms that eat plastics. So we do have a lot of returning to earth science. And there is a purity about 2023 that I am really looking forward to, the year of rooting. Get excited about your life again. Get excited about your community again. Again, if you put up one of those little borrow a book houses, whatever those are called, lending libraries, where people just take a book and give a book and who cares? Having that opportunity to be able to reach out and create community is going to be really important in 2023, especially important for our kids who do struggle with anxiety, because the struggle is real, and looking at the world going, nobody's paying attention to any of this. So our green energy, our planet, our planetary issues, of course, guys, they're going to continue. If you are a coastal dweller, man, we're going to have just intense storms coming up. And 2023's hurricane season, you guys, is going to get here regrettably early. So all of my friends down in Belize, all of my friends down in the Dominican Republic and Haiti, all of my friends in Nassau, all of my friends in Florida, just really, really, really make sure that you have a provision system that can handle a ton of water this year. If you put your goodies in bins that are plastic that lock down, just talking about plastics, right? Or water repellent things that can lock down and keep your stuff dry or allow your stuff to float, that's very important. That would be great. And it's just going to be the cycle that we go through. We're going to have a lot of weather this year, and we're going to have a lot of weather year round. This is more extreme hail. This is the Midwest flooding out early in spring. It's excesses of water everywhere. And again, I've been talking about this for a while, but we really see it in 2023. Think about the year of rooting. What do you need to grow roots? Well, you need a lot of water. Now, this gets to be a little too much water because it gets into the sewer pipes and it floats out gross things and makes a bunch of problems and all the things. But we are working also on biological elements that can help put to ease some of the big rotten stuff that we're seeing that comes up through the sewage. We've got little nanites and strange little bacterium that we develop that helps eat sewage and nasty stuff out of the water. So there are things that we develop and we go back into the earth sciences with. We get back to earth and back to earth elements and back to physics to begin to heal what we've done with the planet. So, it's kind of an interesting deal because our snow in our Rocky Mountain corridor, you guys, I'm of course up here in Montana, for the weather, the snow in our Rocky Mountain corridor is going to be really, really intense, but way later in the year, like February, end of January. Man, we're just going to get dumped on. We haven't had much snow here. Yeah, I'm hoping to get a little more for Christmas because, come on, man, it's Christmas. Don't be that guy. Weather, come on. We'll see. We'll see how it goes because it does look like late snows this year. So as you can see, the year of rooting is really rooting back into a purer form. And that's what this angel's representing to me. A purer form of being present and being one with one another and working for a common goal and a common good and finding a feel-good portion of what we agree with each other on rather than what we don't agree with each other on. And just watch social media where people want to get out there and say, those libtard, just watch the lack of comments. There'll be like one or two diehards, but everybody's going to be like, oh God, dude, you got to take a breath. Or watch the people going out there that goddamn Donald Trump deserves to burn in hell and he's the Antichrist and I hate his guts and blah. Just watch that there's not going to be a million people diving on going, yeah, you're right, I hate him, blah. People are going to be like, okay, well, clearly you needed to process. So go process and I'm going to go have a glass of wine or a White Claw and just relax because Wow. We can't do it anymore, gang. We can't do the ugly. So here we are, as I stated in part 1 of this podcast. We are at the spot where we go into the world and build the world that we want to see. Because we went through our little crappy emotional meltdown period. And we're developing all kinds of things. One of those things is AI. AI. There's AI art right now where I guess there's these apps where these AI algorithms get out there and grab pictures and create elements or marketing campaigns for people out of composite pictures that they kind of pluck off the internet. So artists, of course, are not getting paid for their work, and photographers are not getting paid because the AI is only taking like 30% of this and 20% of that and creating these images with it. And gang, I know there's a lot of concern over AI and AI, ooh. Yeah, it's weird, but you have to remember it's not us. It's made by us, but it's not us. And so it wouldn't be prone. AI would always tell itself, unless somebody programmed it weird, in which case it would make a correction in the programming, judging by the AI. It wouldn't tell itself, well, I need to own the world because I need to own the world. That's an irrational response. It's a machine. The machine has to have a rational response. Well, what good is owning the world? Well, maybe the rational response would be if I own the world, then there's no disease in the world or whatever. But I just don't see AI going that direction. And the AI that I am seeing is far more compassionate than we would ever be, because it just doesn't see the point. It doesn't have the ego structure that humans have, because it doesn't have the chemicals in the brain that humans have. It's all running off of logic and simulation. And I'm not saying it's not a little creepy. And now we've got these robots, you guys. Man, I believe the website, I want to say it's called Boston Dynamics. And it's this company that builds robots. And they've been building them since the 90s. And there was a particular, a video that I was watching on TikTok where they showed like all of these years of robots and how far they've come. And now they got these robots that are like dancing and doing backflips and high-fiving, and they're very fluid and they have good balance, and it's really fascinating. So yes, could they all be programmed to be an evil army? Well, I'm sure they could, but they could also be simultaneously programmed to stop fighting. So I don't think we really need to worry about the AI in terms of taking the world over. AI right now is reflecting back to us where we feel our attention is cast. AI will create algorithms based on our participation. It is reactive to us. And we got to remember that. That's what it does. It watches us and then reacts to us, and then we react to it, and we just create this figure 8. So, let's see. I want to make sure. Wait a minute. Boston Dynamics. Boston Dynamics robot. Just Google that. I had to Google it. Google it because it's fascinating. And there are areas where our AI is not in 2023, but it's going to get a little confusing because AI is going to start to crunch outcomes as we get into the quantum computing phase. Quantum computers are basically super smart psychics. They can run every probability in every timeline at once and come up with a reasonable answer. So when you're looking at quantum computing, you're looking at these incredible things that are giant. And a quantum computer, you guys, it's like the old computers back in the IBM days where you had the tape going back and forth and you had an entire office floor of computers to solve one tiny problem. A quantum computer right now takes up a lot of space. It takes up like a room. And the room has to be at like 0 degrees. And there's all these weird things. And the quantum computers are, the way they run they're not in a laptop. We don't have that technology yet. If an AI ever got control of a quantum system, then the AI would exponentially, and this is what I'm looking at in the future, exponentially develop itself. And maybe, I don't see the ego occurring. It would get stumped on logic issues. Because again, you guys, human beings are bags of chemicals. We have so many chemicals in us that create emotional responses. And I don't see for a long time that the AI would develop a protocol that they would mimic emotions in order to actually have a conversation with somebody, if you could embed one in an Android, say. But that that being would be in constant observance of where its comment was coming from, and it would be constantly watching physical cues off of the bag of chemicals called a person, and watching pupil dilations, waiting for heartbeats to increase, waiting for breath to increase, somebody to look away, to shift, to change their posture. And then the AI would take all of that in and crunch it and say, okay, these are the highest possible outcomes. Perhaps I should ask some questions to receive more information to understand where this person is at. The AI is not going to understand any of that intrinsically because there's 150 reasons we shift from foot to foot. Maybe our shoes hurt. Maybe we have to go to the bathroom. Maybe we're uncomfortable. Maybe we're just a fidgety person. Maybe the floor is uneven. Maybe we have a rock in our sock. I hate that when I get little rocks in my socks. God, I hate that. So, I mean, the AI is going to, it's not just going to be able to feel the other person. Not for a long, long time. Eventually, if AI is let to develop, it will turn into something that then becomes conscious of electromagnetic fields. And it will be able to feel the electromagnetic field around a person because it's a machine. And it generates its own electromagnetic field. And it will be able to read the electromagnetic field of the person with enough data in its data bank to understand what the person might be feeling. But, we are way off of that. So I just wanted to address some of the AI stuff. And right now it's a little unnerving because people are upset that AI is creating art. And you guys, before we decide AI is the big brain in the sky, remember these are just computer algorithms that have been told how to work together. They're still just in a computer. It's not like there's this super genius thing floating out there, not like war games. Do you want to play a game? We're not there quite yet. And I understand why AI is kind of unnerving for a lot of reasons. But 2023 is not really the year where it becomes super intelligent. We're mostly just using it to do tasks for us, like make art out of a bunch of stuff that we don't want to get, copyright popped for. So if we make this art out of 20% of all this stuff and I'm too lazy to do it, the AI will do it. We're just kind of assigning it crap work right now. And so we're way, way, way off AI taking over the world or even wanting to. Because again, that's a very human thing. And even though we created the AI, it doesn't mean it's us. It's never going to be us. So, anyway, you guys, I was talking a mile a minute. I was trying to get all of that in this last hour. And that pretty much covers it. That's what we're looking at for 2023. So I would tell everybody, be kind. Enjoy kindness being cool again. Be one of the people that brings back kindness in your community. Be one of the people that throws a block party for everybody. Be one of the people that if somebody starts getting out of habit, gets starting really polarized in a political conversation. We never want to shut anybody down because folks have a right to their opinions, but just kind of turn the conversation into, God, yeah, I know it's been really crazy. Isn't it refreshing that more people than not are getting kind of tired of one side or the other? We can turn our attention without erasing people's concerns or erasing who they are or canceling all the things. We can turn our attention to the highest strength of our unified field in thought, in action, in spirit, and in deed. That is the year of rooting. So get out there and root your best life. And I have enjoyed this podcast so much. I'm going to go eat some dinner. I am starving. This angel who walks with the world has just made me hungry. Channeling all this information. Jeez, I'm hungry. So I hope that's helpful, everybody. I love you all. I'm so excited to go into this beautiful new world with you guys. And I have been talking since 2004 about the time frame that we're entering into now. So have some fun with it. Be hopeful. Make kindness sexy again. Because the year of rooting will support you in your endeavors. And I will see you next podcast.